The Tennis Gambling Podcast on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network is brought to you by Fantasy. Sign up promo code SGPN to get 50% deposit bonus up to $1K. We're also brought to you by Rhythm. Start crushing college football in the NFL with Rhythm. Get our 70 free all day by going to sportsgambling.com, RATHMM. And welcome, everybody, to the Tennis Gambling Podcast here on the Sports Game Podcast Network. It's currently Thursday night, roughly, I should say Thursday morning, roughly 1 a.m. Eastern Time on October 31st. I'm your host, Scott Reichel, once again going solo for this pod. It's time to get into the round of 16 matches here in Paris. We're going to preview most of those matches in a little while, but before that, I do want to recap what happened in the Wednesday matches, including the recap of the lock and dog picks. Starting off with the lock and dog pick, went back to Paracard and it worked out. We had the first set tiebreak at minus 108. Really funny set of tennis I'll get back to, but it was never in doubt. 0 break point chances for both guys. It was a sweat-free win. A nice win there for the lock. For the dog, pick up a loss there with Greek Sport and Zverev over 2.5 sets at plus 155. Match was competitive, but Zverev was just a bit too solid. Greek Sport a couple breakpoint chances in the first set, could not convert, and Zverev eventually got a break in the second. But the match was competitive, had a breaker in there. Unfortunately, though, Greek Sport did lose both sets as we lost the dog play. Still like the price, though, just didn't work out. So once again, not a bad episode. Hit the lock, lost the dog, and we'll look for a sweep here on Thursday. Now, before we get into the actual recap of the Wednesday matches, of the Wednesday matches, do want to remind you once again that you should subscribe to the podcast on YouTube, and a reminder you can show support for the podcast on Spotify or Apple by leaving a rating and a review. You can also catch it live on Twitter. I know it's simulcast on the SGPN Twitter feed, so once again, check that out if you do want to watch it on Twitter instead, or you can just watch it in video format afterwards on YouTube. Point is, a couple ways to actually support the show, and once again, please leave a rating and a review on Spotify or Apple, or please like and subscribe. Plus, a reminder, check out the merch store on the SGPN website. We have a lot of great Tennis Game Podcast merch. We have sweatshirts, t-shirts, and mugs, different colors, all affordable, all comfortable. Recommend getting yourself something. And a reminder, you can also show support for the entire network, not just for this show, before the NBA show, for the really just for any show you can think of, the NASCAR Gambling Podcast, MLB Gambling Podcast. I know the season's over, but the point is you can still show support by leaving a 5-star rating and a review on Spotify for those podcasts. A reminder that only you can help prevent corporate gambling from taking over. And a reminder that the NBA Gambling Podcast, I believe, just cracked into the top 50, maybe top 45 of Spotify downloads. So please, once again, show some support to the other shows with the network. Anyway, time to recap what happened on Wednesday. Starting off with the first match, it had a pretty fun pair match to start the day, as Dimitrov took on Echeverry, as he won in 3 sets. Thought Dimitrov would win in straight sets, but I thought it would be competitive, so I was right about the second half, but did not get the first half right, as Echeverry did end up winning the first set 11-9 in a tiebreak. Then Dimitrov ended up winning 6-3, 7-5. For the other ones, I ended up being right about Medvedev. Thought that he would end up being in danger throughout the course of this matchup. My favorite play was the Medvedev team total over at 12.5. Whatever number you got there, as he lost in the final set breaker. Not a good year for Medvedev at all, and I feel like the serve's been a serious weakness for him. But Pyro got the job done. He ended up having to fight off a break point or two in the end of the third set. Did so, and he won in a breaker pretty convincingly. But overall, nice win, as we liked the over. We thought it'd be a close matchup. We also liked the Medvedev team total over, and that got there as the main thought for that match. We saw Rinderknech against Mickelson. I believe we skipped that. Don't think we actually covered it. You had Manarino against Bergs. I liked the over in that one, and that turned out to be a 3-set marathon. I was wrong about the Struff match, though. Thought Fees would be in a bit of trouble. He was not, as he handled Struff pretty easily, actually, as he won 6-3, 6-4. Humbert destroyed Giron. He owns Giron head-to-head, so not exactly a shock there. Thought Rune would bury Bublik. He did. Congrats to Bublik for beating past prime Fognini in a war, but Rune is definitely in better form, and he's a solid indoor hardcourt player, as he won comfortably 6-4, 6-2. Gashanov beat Paracard in a marathon, did like the, of course, first set over, like the over in general, and Gashanov got the job done. Seemed like Paracard kind of ran out of gas after winning a title in Basel last week and after having a 3-set marathon against Tiafoe in the first round. He did his part in the first set winning it, but then he ended up kind of getting buried in the last 2 sets. However, I think he did set history, at least in the time of my fandom for tennis. Paracard won the first set, despite winning 2. A grand total of 2. Not a typo. He won 2 return points in the entire first set. Kashanov held all 6 games to love. Paracard won 2 return points in the tiebreak, and he won the set. I've never seen that before in my life. Now, I know that technically the minimum can be 1, because you'd win 1 mini break and a tiebreak and get the job done in a tiebreaker with only winning 1 return point. 2 has to be a record. I mean, 1 is crazy to think about, but only winning 2 return points in the entire set and still winning the set sounds impossible. But Perricard did it, and he ended up losing in the last 2 sets because Khachanov was the better player. But the point is, it was definitely historic, at least in my fandom. Wanted to mention it. Perricard, I said before, he might be approaching the greatest serve bot of all time territory already. He's only 21, and he's really just an unbelievable server. That's going to push him above some guys because, once again, 2 points, 2 return points in an entire set, and you win the set. You are already a first ballot serve bot Hall of Famer in my book, and I look forward to backing him for years to come on this show. Anyway, going into the other matches here for Wednesday. Deminaur beat Kekmanovic. Should have went to 3 sets. Then Kekmanovic choked. What else is new? As he was serving for the set, lost it, and then he eventually lost in the tiebreak. I said before that Zverev beat Griekspoor in straight sets. Thought Draper and Fritz would kill each other. They did, and Draper did outlast him, winning in 3. Shout out to Fritz, though, for the dyed blonde hair for some reason, but whatever. Nice win there for Draper. And Kaza ended up beating Shelton. Shelton didn't look great against Moutet, but Kaza's been good. I know he was a lucky loser after losing to Fognini, of all people, in qualifying. But he looked good in the first round, as we ended up seeing him really, or I should say, he ended up getting through against Goffin in qualifying, ended up losing to Fognini in 3, but he looked good. And the crowd support was there, as he got the job done, beating Shelton in 3. So overall, kind of a nice blend between competitive matches and blowout matches, but either way, hopefully we'll get some fun matches here on Thursday. Trying to think of anything else that's actually worth talking about for the sake of the event. Can't really think of anything. I feel like most of the tournament matches have been pretty straightforward. Haven't really seen any controversy that I could think of, unless I'm blanking on something. But yeah, I don't really have much else to add. Once again, I just think that Medvedev has had a really bad year, and I'm not exactly shocked that you are looking at a situation where Medvedev lost to a pretty underrated player in Papirin, who's had a very good year, won a 1,000 title, and Medvedev ends the year with 0 titles. So him and Djokovic combined 0 titles, of course not including the Olympics, is definitely not what people expected going into the season, but that's where we're at right now. Besides that, though, I do want to mention one quote that actually was made by Kyrgios a couple days ago, because there are some rumors that he's hoping to come out of retirement, and I want to talk about it quickly. Not because of the potential comeback itself, but because of some quotes he made, because he said that he hopes to leave his tennis career, quote, a little bit more gracefully than Nadal and Murray. Ouch. Just wanted to mention that quickly because I know that Kyrgios is a very polarizing figure, both on the court and off the court. And I feel like he wasn't exactly trying to be insanely disrespectful. I mean, he made some other quotes here. He said, I look at how Andy Murray's doing right now, how Nadal's going out. I don't want to be like that either. I don't want to be kind of crawling to the finish line in a sense. What Murray's achieved in the sport is second to basically no one, unless you're Novak Djokovic, Roger Federer, or Nadal. Like the next person is Andy Murray. It's like you've achieved everything. You deserve to go out, I think, with a little bit more gracefully than he did. I think the surgery is the pain. It's just not worth it, in my opinion. So I just want to dive into that quickly because I can understand where he's coming from, but that does sound extremely disrespectful when you've been basically choosing to not play for the last couple of years. Yes, he got hurt, but he's been broadcasting. He probably could have made a comeback, I'd say, sooner than he actually did. And the fact that he's trying to come back now as a last-ditch effort thing, I don't know how I'd say disingenuous it is, but I'm not sure if I actually trust Kyrgios making the comeback in the first place. The point is, though, he did kind of insult 2 tennis legends, either through honesty or not. I don't think he was wrong, but I don't know if you should be saying that when you basically voluntarily left the sport for about a year and a half. I feel like that's kind of hypocritical in a way, or at least coming from a bad source, just based on him being the messenger. But yeah, he called out Nadal, he called out Murray, maybe not intentionally, but I get what he was going for. It does feel disrespectful, though, when you have 2 guys that have laid it all on the line for their entire careers, and Nadal and Murray, who have dealt with injuries. They could have retired. They chose to stick around because they love the sport. And Kyrgios, who's been taking a vacation for a couple years, basically says, you know what, if I was going to retire, that wouldn't be me. I don't want to go out looking that badly. I get what he's trying to say, but I wasn't exactly a fan of the tone that he used when he said it, and I feel like he could have phrased it a bit better. But either way, I wanted to mention that as Kyrgios is trying to make a return. Do we know when? No. Do we know if it's actually a serious return? No. But he made some comments, wanted to mention it. Time to move on into the matches here for Thursday. Before we get into the actual matches, though, for Thursday, do remember once again, they're brought to you by McFans because they have a lot of great pick-em menu items that you can use for your entries. NFL, college football, MMA, NBA, NASCAR, tennis, and more. Boostober is upon us, which means you're getting a spooky amount of profit boost and much more. And a reminder, you can use specials and boosts on our Flex entries. I'll probably do something For the football game tomorrow, I think for this one, I am going to go with CJ Stroud lower, 20.5 completions. If you look at his numbers home and road, the splits are alarming. His completions are really underwhelming on the road, and they run the ball with Mixon 20-plus times a game. So I am going to go with the lower here for Stroud completions in that matchup for my entry. Reminder to sign up the promo code SGPN to go on special first-time deposit offer up to a 1K in bonus cash on a fantasy promo code SGPN. Welcome back, everyone, to the Tennis Scaling Podcast. Just finished recapping what happened on Wednesday. Time to move on into the Thursday matches. Starting off with the first match on the schedule, you have Manarino against Thompson. Should be a fun one. Thompson's about minus 160. Manarino's around plus 140. For the actual spread here, minus 2.5 for Thompson, plus 2.5 for Manarino. For the over-under, you have around 22.5 games. For the set spread here, you have Thompson in straight sets at plus 155. You have Manarino to win a set at minus 185. And for the over 2.5 sets, you have plus 135. Now, head-to-head's been close. Manarino's actually up 5-3, I mean, in the head-to-head, but Thompson did win the last meeting in Washington last year, so most recent winner, but we have seen Manarino give Thompson problems in the past. Thompson, though, has been good so far. Beat Martinez in straight sets, beat Ruud in 3. As for Manarino, he's been battling, and he's been succeeding. Ended up beating Paul in straight sets. A nice upset win there. Then beat Bergs in 3 despite losing the first set. So Manarino was really bad in the middle, I'd say, months of the year. Was great in Australia. He made a deep run in January, etc. Then he was really bad. Then he's kind of regained his form a bit. And of course, he's in his home country, so the crowd support will always be in his favor here. Point is, though, for the actual matchup, I do think it's going to be a close one. Don't mind the over. 2 of the last 3 meetings did end in a deciding set. So I don't mind the over here. I think that Manarino is actually pretty live to win it, and I think you're looking at what should be a close matchup. I think Thompson, once again, might be the better player, but Manarino, if he is on his game, can be dangerous because of how consistent he is with the overall flatness of his ground strokes. And I think that Thompson, who we know can self-destruct mentally at times, I do think is going to be in a bit of danger, and there's going to be a couple of potential breaking points for him, not in terms of getting his serve broken, but in terms of just mentally challenging him and seeing if he can respond to the adversity. I'm skeptical, so I'm going to go with Manarino for the dog price here of around plus 140. Like the price quite a bit. I think Thompson should be closer to minus 140 in my opinion, so 160 is a bit high. I'll go with the dog here and the over in that one. Moving on to the next matchup. We're going to go to a matchup between Tsitsipas and Cerundolo. For this one, actually deja vu. Faced off, we saw in Basel, and we ended up seeing Tsitsipas win that one in a final set breaker. Very fun match, very up and down, but either way, Tsitsipas is favored again, minus 172. You have Cerundolo at plus 152. Game spread is around 2.5 for Tsitsipas. For the over-under, you have 22.5 or 23.5 games. The over 23.5, though, is plus 106. For straight sets in this one, you have Tsitsipas to win in straight sets at plus 135. You have Cerundolo to win a set is at about minus 165. And for the over 2.5 sets, you have plus 135. Now, for the last meeting, said before it was an absolute war. Tsitsipas has been playing fine in the event. We saw him beat Baena in 3 sets, then he beat Tabilo comfortably. As for Cerundolo, ended up beating Hallis in straight sets, and he ended up beating Rublev in 2 tie breaks. Misleading, though, because there were a bunch of breaks, and both guys had chances to serve out the sets, and they blew it. So that match was really up in the air, and Cerundolo just did a better job of outlasting Rublev, who temper tantrum again and kind of self-destructed. For this one, I think Tsitsipas is going to win. I think that he's the better player, but I think that it's going to be a close matchup. I do think, though, people are expecting an absolute war because of what happened in Basel. I'm not going to go that far. I think Tsitsipas wins. Maybe it goes 3 sets again, but I really don't see 2 tie breaks. I think Tsitsipas is the better player on hard court, and Cerundolo has been getting by. But Hallis has had a pretty rough year, and Rublev's been a head case for the entire season. And of course, he's been kind of slumping, trying to make one of the last spots in Turin. So I'm going to go with Tsitsipas here. I think that actually there's some value in straight sets at plus 135. If I'm picking him to win, and I think I can find some value going with a method of victory, I'll go with the straight sets at plus 135. Maybe a breaker in there, but Cerundolo is still not a great server. I think Tsitsipas can do a decent job of, I'd say, pressuring his service games more than Cerundolo pressure his service game. So I'm going to go with Tsitsipas in straight sets for this one at a plus money price. Moving on, though, to the next matchup. Going to go to a matchup between, I think I'm going to jump around, though, for a bit. I'll go to a matchup between Dimenauer and Draper, which I think is probably the second best match on the board. You could argue it might be Kashanov and Papirin, maybe Zverev and Fees. A lot of good matches on the card. But I think that Dimenauer and Draper is the first match that kind of caught my eye as, I don't want to say must-watch TV, but close to it. For this one, though, Draper's favored. He's about minus 149, give or take. And for the dog here, or sorry, the line's actually dropped. Draper was at minus 149. He dropped to like minus 126. And Demonauer's at around plus 106. For the game spread here, you have minus a half for Draper, plus a half for Demonauer. For the over-under, you have around 22 and a half for the over-under. For the sets, you have over 2.5 sets at around plus 125. For set spread, you have Draper to win in straight sets at around plus 185, and Demonauer to win in straight sets is around plus 260. Now, Draper, we were right about in the first match. We did go with a prop, or I should say a specific angle, took Draper first set money line that got there as he beat Fritz in the first set. However, head-to-head's been interesting between these two because Demonauer was 3-0. They faced off twice this year, once in Acapulco, and you saw Draper get injured as he retired down 4-0 in the final set. U.S. Open came around, though, and Draper killed him, 6-3, 7-5, 6-2. So Draper, we've seen, once again, crack into the top 15. He's been great. We saw him beat Fritz in the match on Wednesday. He's in great form. Demonauer has looked good here, ended up beating Navone, who was not any good on hard court, and he ended up beating Kecmanovic. Should have dropped the set, though, as Kecmanovic was serving it out and then ended up getting broken, and then he ended up losing the second set in a breaker. So Demonauer should have dropped at least one set here. Hasn't played great competition, though. Kecmanovic has been pretty rough so far this season. Draper, though, is fresh off a title in Vienna, beat Leheshka, a very good hard court player in straight sets, and he beat Fritz in 3. Fatigue could be an issue, but I do like the price on Draper. I think 126 is cheap. I get fatigue could be an issue, but based on current form, I think Draper is arguably the better player. And I do think Demonauer is still making his way back from injury. He's looked better as he's played more matches, but I still can't look past the fact that he probably should have lost a set to Kecmanovic, maybe even beyond that, and he's lucky Kecmanovic is kind of a choke artist. So I think you're looking at Draper, who's very alive to win this, and I am picking him to win it. I think it's going to be a marathon, though. Give me the over for the sets here. Looking at the actual head-to-head meetings, the 3-set win by Draper in the U.S. Open was actually the only career meeting between them that ended in straight sets. So 3 of the previous 4, the first 3 meetings actually, all went the distance, or I should say went to a I'll put it this way. The first 3 head-to-head meetings did not end in straight sets, so I see that happening once again, but I think Draper is right now in better form. Give me Draper to get the job done here at around minus 126. Moving on to the next one, you have what I think is match of the day. I know the odds won't agree with me because Alcaraz is a massive favorite, but Humbert's at home and it might get interesting. So for this one, you have Alcaraz once again who's a massive favorite at minus 150, minus 544. For Humbert, you have around plus 420. For the spread here, you have minus 4 for Alcaraz, plus 4 for Humbert. For the over-under, you have around 21.5 games. For the set spread here, Alcaraz in straight sets is minus 155. You have Humbert to win a set at plus 125. The over 2.5 sets is plus 170. So match of the day, I think, is probably Demonauer Draper, but this one should be a pretty good one, especially based on the odds that I think are a bit off. So Alcaraz, we saw win his first match against Jari, was fine. I'd say he could have served better, but he ended up winning relatively comfortably in the second set. For the path for Humbert, had a marathon against Nakashima, which he won in 3 sets. Then he killed Giron, but he had to play yesterday. So you could argue maybe fatigue, but not really because he won comfortably against Giron. But the point is, we've seen Humbert look very sharp on hard court all year. We saw him win a title or 2 very early this year, and then he ended up once again making a pretty respectable run there a couple of weeks ago in Tokyo before losing to Fees in the final. Had a match point, though, in that one. So Humbert is a very good hardcourt player, especially indoors, and it's in France. So he does have a home crowd advantage, despite Alcaraz being a well-liked guy. Do I think Alcaraz is going to lose? No, I didn't say that. I think that he's the better player, but the face-off in Wimbledon, that match was kind of competitive, as Alcaraz did win that one in 4. You ended up seeing Alcaraz kind of coast in the first 2 sets, then Humbert won 6-1 in the third, and the fourth set was competitive. Couple breaks there, but Alcaraz did win 7-5. Faced off in the Davis Cup, though, and Alcaraz did win 6-3, 6-3. For this one, I think I'm going to go with the games here for Humbert. I prefer 4.5, but that's pretty heavily juiced. I like the over for games at 21.5 at minus 122. I see potentially a breaker in here, maybe a 7-5, but I do think you're going to end up getting a more competitive matchup than what the odds makers suggest. I understand why the line is so big, but Humbert on hard court, fast-paced courts, and with him being in his, I'd say, home environment here in France, I think he can make this interesting. Is he going to win? Once again, no. But I think you're looking at what should be a close matchup. A 6-4, 6-4 outcome for Alcaraz is kind of realistic here, but I think you're going to end up getting a 7-5 or 7-6. I'll go with the over for games, and I'll go with the games here for the actual dog for this one. Moving on to the next overall matchup. The last one we're going to cover is between Dimitrov and Rinderknech. For this one, you have Dimitrov as a massive favorite. He's around minus 500. And for this one, you have Rinderknech is around like 4-1, give or take, or 350. For the actual spread here, Dimitrov minus 3.5 games, and you're looking at the over-under being around 22.5. For the set spread, Dimitrov in straight sets is minus 125. Rinderknech to win a set is minus 105. For the over 2.5 sets, you have around plus 160. Now, Dimitrov had a marathon against Etcheverry, which he won, and Rinderknech has been looking pretty sharp so far. Ended up beating Mickelson in 2 tiebreaks, beat Makic courtesy of retirement. Pretty lucky there that Makic got hurt. I don't think he's that great of a player, though. Like, I think Rinderknech, I've said before, is a decent ATP player. I think that he is a guy that I never see winning a title, if you're asking me, compared to other guys on tour. But I can see him making a semi in one random spot, not a 1,000 event, but I think Dimitrov's better. Dimitrov, we saw look in, say, a pretty vulnerable situation in that first match against Etcheverry, but he ended up surviving. We saw him make a deep run in Stockholm before losing in the final to Paul. We saw him lose early on in Vienna. Not really his fault, though, as he played a lot of tennis, beat Zhang, and then ended up losing in 3 to Makic, and then he beat Etcheverry. I don't mind the straight sets here. Faced off 2 times in their careers. It was once this year in Marseille, so they already faced off, actually, in France, and Dimitrov beat him in straight sets. That was back in February. Faced off last year on grass, Dimitrov won 6-3, 7-5. Point is, though, he's won both meetings in straight sets. I think he's the better player. I think Rinderknech is really not that great. Good win, though, for him against Mickelson, but for a guy that tall, he should be a better server than he actually is. And I think Dimitrov will be able to get some breakpoint chances. Give me Dimitrov in straight sets in that one. That's going to wrap it up, though, for the actual preview of the Thursday matches. Now it's time for the lock and dog picks. But once again, they were brought to you by Rhythm, because Rhythm is SGPN's proud partner, #1 AI-powered sports betting platform. That's where our bettors all levels the ability to build custom predictive models in seconds, get predictions on every game for money line spreads, totals, and props. Build your own model. You can copy a model from the leaderboard or press build model for me. Rhythm will build you a model in seconds, giving you predictions on every game and player props. Also a bunch of stats, research, and analysis, and a reminder that you can also use it for free for 7 days. Claim a center for your child by going to sportsgames.com Rhythm, sportsgames.com, RATHMM. We're also brought to you by BetUS. BetUS has been around for more than 30 years. Easy depositing crypto and get lightning fast payouts. And a reminder, they have a promo going on for Halloween. Trick or treat on Horror Street from now until Halloween. BetUS is offering daily promotions, a raffle entry to win a sports or casino prize pack that they'll give away on October 31st. A reminder, you can enter multiple times. Every $200 does get you an entry for a deposit. And a reminder that you can sign up with the promo code SGPN when you go to the link sportsgamepodcast.com/BetUS, sportsgamepodcast.com/BetUS, America's favorite sportsbook. Welcome back, everyone, to the Tennis Gambling Podcast. Time to get into the actual lock and dog picks for the Thursday matches. Starting off with the lock, I am going to go with a plus money play, actually, for both the lock and the dog. Felt like switching it up a little bit. Let's have some fun. Going to go with the first match, though. Going to go with the Thompson and Mannarino match. For this one, give me the team total over for Mannarino at 12.5 at plus 104. This on Bet Rivers. Covering why I'm going to go with the team total over. First reason, he has been kind of a marathon machine. He has gone over this team total in 3 straight matches. We've seen Mannarino have a couple of heartbreaking losses recently, so I'm not sure if he's actually going to win, but he has been going distance. He's looked good here, and he's been good in the head-to-head. He's currently up 5-3 against Thompson in the head-to-head. You're looking at him going over this team total, though, in 4 of the last 5. There's usually at least 1 7-5 or 7-6 set between these two, and I think that might be the case once again here with the pace of the courts in Paris. But I think you're looking at Thompson, who has been solid, but Mannarino's given him some problems over the years, and I do think that Mannarino, with his overall consistency, has regained some form that he had a couple months ago, and I do think with him being in France, you're looking at what should be a pretty fun matchup. Give me Mannarino, though, to keep this match competitive and maybe to even win a set minimum. I think he should win at least 1 set, so I'm going to go with that as basically the angle. Give me Mannarino team total over 12.5 games at plus 104 is my lock. For my dog, I am going to go to the Khachanov and Papiron match. Did skip it for a reason. Going to go with the over 2.5 sets at plus 125. Simply put, both guys stylistically pretty similar. They are willing to stand behind the baseline and rally. They have some firepower, and I do think you're looking at what should be a very close match. Khachanov's had a couple of wars here in this event, ended up going to 3 sets in each of the first 2 rounds. As for Papiron, he dropped at least 1 set in 3 of the last 4. So both guys have been winning, but not overly dominant, and I think you're looking at the overall style of play resulting in a very competitive matchup. Both guys should be able to have success. I think both guys will have ups and downs, but I think you're looking at what should be a very back-and-forth affair. As a result, give me the over 2.5 sets, and what I think is going to be a war might be the most entertaining match of the day. Once again, you might be looking at Draper and de Minaur, or even Alcaraz and Humbert as the entertaining match, I'd say, going in. But I think this match might be the most competitive out of those three, and you might see a final set breaker in theory in the third set. But give me the over 2.5 sets here at plus 125. So once again, the picks for the show, the lock's going to be a Manarino team total over 12.5 games at plus 104. For the dog, I am going to go to Khachanov and Papirin over 2.5 sets at plus 125. That's going to wrap it up. For this episode, a reminder, you can find me on Twitter at Reichel Radio. Next episode will be the quarterfinals here in Paris. Look at the comment section, though, quickly. See a couple of people asking for women's episodes for the WTA final. I'm going to hit you with a maybe. I really don't know. I don't really follow WTA as much as I follow the ATP, which is why I tend to stay away from it. Maybe I'll cover like the semis of the WTA final and the final. I might do that. Going through the group stage stuff, that might be a bit too much for me. But I think I am going to go with the WTA semifinals and finals in that event. That'll be the compromise. I'll do what I did for the Grand Slams for them. I'll do the last 2 rounds of the tournament. Is that fair? Andrew and Rick, does that work for you? I think that's what I'll end up doing, though, for that event. Either way, though, until next time, find me on the MLB show. Season's over, though. Find me on the NBA show. Find me on the tennis show, of course. Until next time, good luck to all of you and all of your bets. Bye, everyone.